This program is brought to you by Emory University.
All right, we are ready to get started. Hello and welcome to our third webinar of the summer. My name is Tanya Willard. I am the Director of Orientation in Emory College of Arts and Sciences. And on behalf of everyone here at Emory, congratulations on your acceptance to Emory, and we're so excited to meet you here in just a few weeks. So for our third webinar tonight, we will be talking about getting involved at Emory, and I'll introduce our speaker in just a minute. But before that, I want to welcome all of you here. I want to especially welcome any international students that are watching us from around the country or around the world. It may be very late or very early, depending on where in the world you are right now. And so we really appreciate you hanging in there with us for this webinar. I also want to say a special hello to any family members that are joining us tonight. We know that many of you are probably watching with your son or daughter or without your son or daughter, and we're happy to have you as well with us. And finally, I want to give a special welcome to my friends that I met last week from the GLUE program who are already here on campus with us this summer, staying at the Claremont campus. It was great meeting you all, and I can't wait to see you in just a few weeks. So before I get started, I want to go over the rules of the webinar. As you have already discovered, there is a chat box to the bottom left of your screen. Please use that space to ask us questions about this particular webinar. As I said, we're going to be talking about getting involved in extracurricular activities, finding your passion. So please feel free to ask us questions about that. If you have questions about orientation in general or other Emory questions, please feel free to email us at ecorientation@learnlink.emory.edu. We will try to get through as many of your questions as possible, and we will save time at the end, and we'll answer some questions live as well. But please use that chat box for questions about this webinar only. We have some staff members here who are going to help answer those questions, and it makes their job a lot easier if they can filter through and just go straight to the questions that pertain to this webinar. So with that, I am going to quickly introduce our speaker tonight, and then we will go ahead and get started. So joining us tonight is Matt Garrett. He is the Interim Director in the Office of Student Leadership and Service. And I will let you say anything else you'd like to say, and we'll go ahead and get started.
So in the Office of Student Leadership and Service, we're a part of the Division of Campus Life. And so there are 17 different units that support all of you in sort of your outside of the classroom endeavors. And so that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about. And I'm happy to help with Tanya and some of the other staff members direct you and help you figure out where you might be able to get involved right when you get to campus.
Okay, ready?
All right, so today we're really going to talk about, for the first few minutes, we're going to just be going through sort of an overview on why it's important to get involved and what are some of the key tips that we want to give you to make sure that you know before you get to campus. We're going to give you some resources so you can go ahead and be doing some scouting and researching ahead of time, and then we're going to just kind of jump into some of the questions that you have. So to begin with, we just want to talk very briefly about why it's incredibly important to get involved on campus. One of the poll questions that some of you may have seen talked about the fact that academics are absolutely your top priority at Emory. That's why you're in school, and that's what you're here for. But at the same time, being involved on campus is an incredibly important component to your collegiate experience. It's going to really be your community and help you develop a community of people that are interested in similar things, people you enjoy hanging out with, and just help you get to know other students. It's really going to help you develop leadership skills, which are incredibly important. That your academic experiences are going to give you the hard skills that employers or medical school are going to be looking for, but it's the extracurricular things that really give you sort of those soft skills, your communication skills, your conflict resolution skills, your building interpersonal relationship skills that are really going to help you, bullet point 3, differentiate yourself. And sort of the last important thing is honing in on your passions and interests. You're coming to Emory, which is a liberal arts institution, and this idea of trying and exposing yourself to so many different things is a hallmark of a liberal arts education, making you a well-rounded member of society. And so by doing that and by getting involved, that's going to help you sort of hone in your passions and hone in the things that you're interested in doing. Another important thing about getting involved on campus, besides just honing in or identifying your passions, is sort of this idea of solidifying your future. A lot of you may think that you're coming in and you know exactly what you're going to major in, and many of you are going to stick with that major, but some of you may not. And picking a variety of different things to get involved with outside of the classroom, maybe research in sort of your area of interest to make sure that you're actually excited about that major, or perhaps the pre-med club as a way to test out and determine if you really are excited about being a pre-med major. Those are some things that can certainly help you. And this will help you develop in different ways that are just going to make sure your future is successful. So just a few things to emphasize as a part of this really well-rounded experience, but that's also giving you some practical skills when you graduate. This is just an interesting study that sort of points out some of the most important things that employers are going to look for whenever you go to graduate. And certainly you're in this environment to just learn in general and to become better citizens, but at the same time, you're going to develop some of these things: critical thinking and reasoning skills, communication skills, innovation, and being able to think critically and creatively. That's going to happen both inside and outside of the classroom. I want to emphasize to you that one of the most important differences between being involved in high school and being involved in college, I often talk about, is this idea that in high school you can often be walking down the hall, or you have a friend that's involved in something, or you have a teacher that is literally begging you to come join the beta club or to come to the Y club event or those kinds of things. But in college, this is really all about your initiative. No one's going to come banging on your residence hall door. No one's going to pull you off your futon. No one's going to pull you out of the library. For some people that, academics are first, but every once in a while it's good to have that social outlet, to have those friends, to have sort of that other thing. And we can talk about those things. But it's going to be up to you. You have to take control of your own involvement and your own leadership development here. So keep that in mind. Just a few practical tips. We recommend to begin with that you take your time and assess all of your options that interest you, and begin to kind of make a list. So some of you can already do that. I see a lot of you are asking questions about a variety of different student organizations. We'll talk about some of those in a minute and some key places you can find lists of all the student organizations, because some of you may not have any idea. Then brainstorm some other things, and I really encourage you to try something new. Just because you think that you're going to be a pre-business major doesn't mean you couldn't go and volunteer with the pre-med club to see if that actually may interest you or may help you solidify, yeah, pre-business is certainly the route for me. After you begin to make those lists and think about all the things that might excite you, take the time in those first 2 weeks that you're here to identify when are these organizations holding meetings, when can I go to a meeting or go to an event, how can I meet people, can I meet the president of an organization for coffee down at Starbucks, those kinds of things, because what that's going to do is help you determine where you actually want to spend your time. So you can start off just going to meetings. A few of you have asked questions on the chat box around this idea of what does it mean to get involved? Can I pull out? Those kinds of things. You certainly can, and one of the things that we encourage you to do to begin with is just to go to meetings, just to try out, meet people, don't accept responsibilities, don't take on a leadership position at the very first meeting, but just try it out. See if you're interested. If you are, stay involved. If you're not, try something else. But it's important to remember that there's only one of you to go around, and I know that's incredibly cheesy. But we encourage you to pick a few organizations at the beginning, and then as you get the hang of sort of the academic rigor and the cycle of the fall semester, you can then determine whether you want to add or subtract to that. But it's incredibly important for you to think about healthy involvement. Time management. College is incredibly different, and you know that. And this idea that sort of you may feel like you're only in class 12 hours a week or 14, 15 hours a week. But at Emory, there's a lot of outside of the classroom time that's going to be taken up by your academics. So don't let that fool you, and make sure you start off small so that you can gradually expand over time. We often talk about this concept of breadth versus depth. And some of the ways that I've been encouraging you right now is really about breadth, trying out a lot of different things and seeing what actually interests you. But the depth is once you really find something that you care about, that's when you really kind of need to dive in deeper. take on leadership positions, actually be a part of planning or running the organization or other things that you're involved with, so that once it's time to actually demonstrate for graduate school applications or things like that, you can show that you've found something that you've committed to, that you've really given a lot of time to. Some of you will find that organization, you may have one or two that you take leadership roles in, but then you may be a member of 4 or 5 others that you just go to meetings and get to know people through it. But it's important to make sure that you're taking care of you throughout the whole time. So let me point you to some resources, and then we'll get to some questions. So where can I get involved? You can certainly start at our website, OSLS, Office of Student Leadership and Service.emory.edu. On there, you're going to notice right on the home page a how to get involved link, and that's going to link you to other places inside of our website, but also externally, because we know we're not the only place to get involved on campus. A lot of you are going to be interested in Volunteer Emory, and that's pretty easy to get involved with off the bat. We run 30 weekly service trips. We do alternative fall and spring break trips, and those are things that you can get involved with or apply for right off the bat. A lot of you are asking questions about student organizations. I encourage you to go to studentorgs.emory.edu. Although none of you can log in today, you will be able to by about August 1st. But even though you can't log in, you can still search. You can see the list of over 230 student organizations on campus already. You can read descriptions about them, and you can sort of start to make that list so that once you can log in around August 1st, you'll actually at that point be able to go ahead and reach out to presidents, find out more information, and then most of those organizations will be present at the Student Activity Fair. There are some other places around campus life, though, that I encourage you to check out. One would be the Office of Multicultural Programs and Services. They have a very strong program called Crossroads, and they have one that happens actually right before orientation that I'm not sure if it's full yet or not, but you can go on their website to find out. I would also encourage you to look at our website. The Emerging Leader Experience applications are coming up. We'll talk more about that later. And then around campus, there are just all sorts of ways to get involved that are not just traditional student organizations. The arts at Emory, you think about Theater Emory and all the different music groups, those things. There's an Arts at Emory website that you can go to that can really link you sort of all over campus. The Women's Center is really strong and does a lot of really cool programs and have a couple of really cool student organizations. The Office of University Community Partnerships, that's another place to go to get involved in community service and service learning. The Office of Community and Diversity, they offer a number of programs. A lot of the programs that you're interested in academically may offer mentorship programs, so that's something you can check into whenever you get to campus. And then there are a large number of programs that offer undergraduate research opportunities. One of those would be the program called SIRE. Stands for Scholarly Inquiry and Research at Emory, SIRE. You can certainly find their information and go ahead and be thinking about what are some ways that you could potentially do research in areas that are interested to you to help differentiate, that's the word I'm looking for, differentiate yourself academically once you get to campus. And sort of my final slide before we jump into questions, if you go to lead.emory.edu, there's a database there that you can search. There's a lot of really cool information there to help you think about leadership development, sort of what do we believe at Emory about leadership and what do we think is important. And then there are a lot of different ways that you can search those databases to find different types of programs to get involved with. So that's another place to look. I highly encourage you to go to the Student Activity Fair. That's August the 29th, Wednesday, right?
Yes.
That's a Wednesday. From 4 to 6 p.m. during orientation. And I think last count, we had over 250 groups registered to be out there. You can just walk around, get your bottle of water, and sign up, talk to people, those kinds of things, find out when folks meet. A lot of you may know about Wonderful Wednesday. That's another great place. So say you've been here for a week or two and you're still not quite sure where to get involved. Wonderful Wednesday happens, probably 8 or so throughout Wednesdays throughout the year. Typically from about 11 until about 2 on Asbury Circle, which is right between the Duck and Cox Hall. And that's basically almost like a small student activity fair every couple of weeks. If all else fails, though, there are a few things you can do. If you're still not sure what you're interested in or how to get involved or have questions, definitely talk to your orientation leader or your RA in residence life. And then in the Office of Student Leadership and Service, we have something called Advisor of the Day, where we're open basically for anybody. You don't have to have an appointment. You can drop by any day of the week from 3 to 5 p.m. and someone will be able to sit there and talk to you about your interests and help you think about different ways to get involved on campus. But with that being said, we're going to jump into taking a few questions.
Great. Thanks, Matt. We've had a bunch of questions come through, so I'm just going to go down the list. One thing that you mentioned very briefly is the emerging leader experience. And that's something that first-year students can get involved in right off the bat. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That's right. So the emerging leader experience we're actually offering it twice this year, so you can apply to participate in the fall, or you can apply to participate in the spring. It's a first come, first served basis, and we take only 40 students away for a weekend, and then you have a couple of additional retreats that last for a couple of hours during the weeks that follow. But the purpose of the emerging leader experience is really to help take new students that are really interested in getting involved in campus, taking on leadership positions, really making a difference. And we take you and pair you with upper class mentors and really coach you through a weekend of how to get involved at Emory, how to make the most of it, and what are the core leadership skills that you're going to need to be successful as a student leader early on. Applications for the emerging leader experience will be live by Monday of next week, and you can link to that on our Office of Student Leadership and Service website, so be on the lookout for that.
Great, thank you. You also mentioned a little bit about Volunteer Emory. And I know there are a lot of students who already participate in service organizations through their high school. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the programs that are offered through Volunteer Emory?
One of the cool things about Volunteer Emory is it's one of those ways to get involved in service and giving back to the community in ways that you really get to dictate how much time you're giving, because there are other opportunities to get involved in service around campus, which if you're interested in, I highly encourage you to do it. One of the most rewarding and best ways to be involved on campus is by giving back to the community. But at Volunteer Emory, we have weekly service trips. We offer about 30 that go to 30 different agencies, so wide variety of opportunities, wide variety of interests, everything from working with medicine, working with youth, working with HIV and AIDS, working with homelessness, poverty, all sorts of social justice areas that might interest you. But a lot of them don't require you to commit every week. So this week you may be able to go, but maybe next week you've got an exam so you can't. So I highly encourage you to check out the weekly service trips. You can go to the Volunteer Emory website now and you can get an idea of what the service trips look like because we still have last year's posted. We should have this year's posted. We're still solidifying a lot of them. We should have them posted by mid-August, so probably a week or two before you come to orientation. But find our table at the orientation fair that day you move in, and we'll have a list for you if you're interested.
Great. I'm going to change gears a little bit. A lot of our freshmen are currently involved were involved in high school in student government, and may be wondering now, as a first-year student at Emory, how can they get involved in student government?
Absolutely. So student government is I'm actually the advisor, so we can talk a little bit, but basically right when you get here, there's going to be the opportunity to attend some information sessions. So I would encourage you, if you're really interested in running for a position and holding a legislative position, to be on the lookout for that right when you get here. There are two different organizations that are student government related that I want to help you understand. There's the Student Government Association that's really the overarching umbrella organization. So you would be a freshman legislator, but you would sit on the legislature with members, about 10 or 15 other people from the Emory College, but also people from the business school and people from the medical school, the law school, public health, all of that. So it's the whole university's student government. And you'll be making more university-wide decisions, so having to weigh pros and cons of bills from all different perspectives, not just as a college student. But then there's the College Council, that's the student government just for Emory College. So if you're really passionate about sort of just the undergraduate population, you could also run for positions there. Now, if you're not interested in running for a position at all, there will be opportunities to be appointed to things like elections boards, to be appointed to constitutional councils, or to be able to serve potentially as an executive assistant to one of the members of their respective executive boards. So all of that information you'll be able to find out at the Student Activity Fair, or you can email our office and we're happy to put you in contact with the right people.
Right. And as I remember, college council anyway, those elections come up pretty quickly once school starts.
And because as a freshman you're going to be a member of the college council actually coordinates elections for the council and the student government. So all those are coordinated by the college council. So definitely let those words sort of grab your attention when you see them on email or see them on a flyer, because that's going to be your link into running for any of these positions right when you get here.
Great. Okay. There have been a lot of questions that have come up about sorority and fraternity recruitment, and although you don't work directly with the Office of Sorority and Fraternity Life, you can probably answer some of those basic questions about when recruitment happens for first-year students.
Certainly.
And what that's like.
The Office of Sorority and Fraternity Life is in campus life, and so I know a little bit, but I'm not going to go into too much specific. It's important for you to know that sign-ups to participate in recruitment happen towards the end of fall semester, because we don't actually offer recruitment until January of your spring semester. That really gives you a full semester to get integrated into the academic fabric of Emory, to sort of make sure that you find a community of people on your residence hall and some other student organizations, and to give you an opportunity to sort of get to know some people that are in sorority or fraternity life, so that you can determine if that's something you're interested in. Now, often a question that I typically get, if I can take a liberty, is around this idea of should I or should I not go through recruitment? If you're interested, one of the things that I encourage you to do is maybe still consider trying it out, because one of the things about sorority or fraternity recruitment is you can always pull out halfway through if you just realize this is not of interest to me at all. But it's kind of hard to reinsert yourself, or you have to wait for a whole nother year if you choose not to on the front end. So keep that in mind. You do not have to be a member of sorority or fraternity life to have an amazing experience at Emory. There are tons of different ways to get involved and different ways to find your social community. But for about a third of the undergraduate students at Emory, that's an option for them that they choose, and they typically have a good experience.
Great, thank you. There are a lot of really good questions. So we're going to try to go through as many of them. It's maybe a little rapid fire. Let's see. So you mentioned that we have around 250-ish student organizations, which sounds like a lot, but maybe someone wants to start an underwater basket weaving class, because we don't have that one.
We do not.
Available.
We do not.
What do those students do? Can they start their own organization, or are they just kind of stuck basket weaving by themselves? How does that work?
You can. I'll start this by saying you got into Emory University. You're smart. You're driven. That does not mean you have to create your own organization. If there's something that really aligns closely and sort of mission, we may actually direct you to work with them. But if there's something completely out of the blue that is just not represented here, or if you can make a compelling case that this is a different organization, all you got to do is convince 10 friends to get the same interest in underwater basket weaving. Do that. Begin to meet, begin to think about sort of what is the mission of our organization. You can go to our Office of Student Leadership and Service website and actually download a sample constitution, and you can go ahead and start writing that. Because what you're going to have to do is, with those 10 members and a constitution, you can come meet with somebody in our office during Advisor of the Day, and we'll talk you then through the process, because depending on your interest, depending on the type of organization, those kinds of things, there may be a different place that you would gain recognition. But every organization got to have 10 members, got to have a mission, and got to have a constitution. So all that's pretty simple.
Great. We've had the question, I think, a few times. How many organizations do you think most students are involved in, or is it? There's probably not a standard number, but what is your sense of the level of involvement of students?
That's really hard to answer, and I wouldn't want to give. You've heard, some people. I saw somebody on the chat throw out 2 to 5 earlier. I said 1 to 3. We don't want to give you a hard and fast number, because there's no magic number. It's really going to be about you. Certain majors require more work. Certain majors are harder than others. Those kinds of things. So it's really all about sort of you. Knowing you, taking care of you and your academics first, and then figuring out how much time you have left. Early on, though, the low end, the 1, 2, 3 is kind of a good start. And then once you get into October, November, maybe you make it through midterms, and you're like, okay, my grades are doing well right now. Maybe you could try out something else on top of that. But it's going to be up to you.
Okay, great. So let's say you get involved in some student organizations and you realize after midterms that maybe you need to kind of pull back just a little bit. How easy is it to quit an organization, and is there any fallback or any repercussions that students might encounter for quitting or withdrawing from an organization?
I'm going to say that for academics, there should not be any ramifications. And if you get into a place where you pull out an organization and someone's, pressuring you or something like that, let us know. We definitely want to help you through that situation. Because at the end of the day, all of these organizations are student driven. So they rely on students to make commitments on things that they will be responsible for. So one of the things that you heard me talk about a little bit during the slides is this idea of trying things out versus actually accepting responsibility. So if you're going to join a number of organizations, maybe you try out for something and you're taking up other people's spots. Sure, you can always withdraw. There's no mandatory anything about participating in these organizations. But, student members of your peers, your friends, could be disappointed if you drop out, or they may have to, look to an alternate list or things like that. All that to say, your academics come first. So if you need to pull out, your grades at midterm aren't where they need to be, that's what you've got to do. But you should think about that ahead of time to say, am I sure that this is a responsibility that I can maintain or keep sort of regardless of what's going on? If it is, go ahead and take that responsibility. If it's not, I encourage you to give yourself a few months to sort of determine exactly what it is that you're capable of doing and then go from there.
Great. One thing that I don't think that has been mentioned yet, but one thing that I want to make sure we highlight is our religiously affiliated student organizations. Sure. If you can mention that briefly.
We have a really expansive Office of Religious Life that really has something for almost every major religion. That in terms of student organizations, I can name 20 right now. I think actually if you go to the studentorgs.emory.edu, on the left-hand side, you can actually search for student organizations and filter out all the ones that are religious. And so you can get a general idea. So some are more student-driven. So the Muslim Student Association or the Hindu Student Association, those are almost completely 100% student-run. And then there are others that actually have full-time staff and things like that that you can get involved with as well. So lots of different options. Go to the Office of Religious Life website as well to learn about some more options if that interests you.
Great. This is a really good question that I did not anticipate getting. Are there dues, or do you have to pay anything to join any of these organizations?
Very good question. So one of the things about getting involved on campus is, for the most part, it's a free thing for you because you've already paid a student activity fee. You pay that every semester. That's why all of our student programming council concerts are free, and the vast majority of what student organizations do is free. But not everything. There are some organizations that, in order to conduct business, do need to charge small dues. But the ones that I'm thinking of, dues are like $10 a person, which can be a stretch for some. But if you can start setting aside some money now in case some organizations do charge a dues or a fee. But they're all pretty small, and there are tons. I would say 80%, 90% that don't charge any kind of dues to get involved with.
And would there be a difference between that and maybe some of our Greek organizations?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Sorority and fraternities do have higher levels of dues, and actually each sorority or fraternity may vary depending. Not a lot of variance, but there is some variance, and that's some questions that you can ask, and that the Office of Sorority and Fraternity Life will help you get that information. They'll offer a number of involvement, recruitment informational sessions throughout the fall semester, so I would look for those.
We had a question about cultural organizations, and if cultural organizations are only open to students who identify as a member of that cultural or ethnic organization, or are they open to everyone?
Absolutely. They're open to everybody. I can think about a wonderful student who was not Indian, but joined the Indian Cultural Exchange and helped plan one of their largest events last year. And she was a rock star and had a blast and met some of the best friends of her life. So absolutely not. I think some of the cultural organizations are just a great way to get to know people that may be different from you in one way or another, help you learn about different cultures, I think about right now the Hindu Student Association does a fantastic Diwali celebration where we actually every year they pick 2 university administrators to get married in a Hindu ceremony, and you actually sort of get to experience that culture, and they recreate it here on campus, and that's open to anybody, and that's how most of the cultural organizations all, I think, are.
Great. Can you explain the difference between intramural sports and club sports?
Aha. It does depend on the sport because not all club sports have incredibly rigorous tryouts, but a lot of them do have some form of trying out, even if that's just showing up on a regular basis. But on the whole, club sports tend to be, you can think of 3 levels of sports. You got your varsity athletes, where that's like eat, sleep, live, and breathe that sport. You've got the club sports, which are very time consuming. Our club athletes are incredibly dedicated. Crew team up every single morning, going out, practicing ultimate frisbee multiple times a week. So there's a higher level of dedication and typically a higher level of skill to be a member of a club sports team. And then intramural, not necessarily required that you have much skill at all. You have a lot more fun. Certainly there are different levels. There are some leagues that are more competitive than others, some sports that are more competitive than others, but usually just a great way to get a bunch of friends together and go have a fun game of flag football is more of what intramurals are about.
Great. There have been a few questions about suggestions for finding that balance between your extracurriculars and schoolwork. If you have any suggestions on how to do that.
I hate to sound trite to say that this is really all about you, but maybe I would encourage you to start by reflecting a little bit. Think about in high school. Was there ever a time in your high school career where you were really overwhelmed and maybe you didn't perform as well in a class? Why was that? Was it about the time that you had committed to other things like band or whatever you may have been involved with? And that can maybe at least be a starting point for you to think about, okay, you know what? In high school, I almost failed that chemistry exam because I had 7 student organization meetings that week. Well, you know what? Maybe being in student organizations or extracurriculars that much of the week is not good for me. So that would be one place to start, is just sort of think reflectively and think about what you can learn. I think the next piece is to realistically sit down with a calendar after you get your classes, and especially sort of in those first few days after you get your syllabi, and realistically look at what the expectations are going to be of you in these classes. When they say you've got to read for X, Y, or Z, this is college. You're going to be reading X, Y, or Z, or you're going to be way behind in the class. So then you can begin to chart out, okay, well, if I've got to do all this homework, it's going to take me an additional 20 hours a week. Okay, well, that's not leaving much. I know I want to have some free time. I got to eat. You have to eat. You need to sleep. You need to be sleeping 8 hours a night, 8 plus. And so at that point, you can say, you know what, it looks like generally from Monday to Friday, I've got 10 extra hours that I can fill up. And so then you can start asking. You can ask the president of the Black Student Association, I'm really interested in joining this club, but how much time does it typically take? And that's always a great question to ask before you get involved in anything, whether it's a first come, first serve kind of thing, if it's a program that you apply for, or if it's something where you really have to rigorously try out. You need to ask on the front end, how much time does it take? What are the peak seasons? So for example, if you're on the men's club rugby team, when do we travel? What does that typically look like? May want to ask some questions about costs, although that's not related to time management and balance. But these are all the critical questions that you need to ask yourself. You don't just need to write your name on 50 sign-up sheets of the activity fair. You need to be asking the questions about how much time does it take up? What are the responsibilities that I'm going to have if I do join the organization? Those kinds of things.
Okay. Somewhat related to that time management thing, and I think tying in also to what you've mentioned about taking care of you, there have been some questions about fitness facilities on campus, which is not directly related to what you do, but you have mentioned several times about the whole taking care of you thing, and for a lot of people that's fitness. You talk a little bit about options that are available for swimmers or people who like to work out a lot or go to the gym, what those options are.
So you're paying an athletic fee, so you're going to have free access to the Woodruff PE Center. If as a junior or senior you're living on the Claremont campus, there's also a gym facility over there. But if you swim, we've got a pool open a ton during the academic year. Sometimes restricted hours, but those are always well posted ahead of time, and typically only maybe on the weekends or during holiday seasons. We've got at the Woodpeck, we've got the fabulous indoor track. You've got the rock climbing wall. You've got access to the basketball courts during some open rec hours. You've got the indoor tennis courts up on the top floor, but then you just also got free weights and cardio machines. And then there are a number of classes that you can take, and sometimes those may have an extra fee. I don't always necessarily know that because I haven't taken a lot of classes here.
I haven't either.
Yeah, but I know like yoga, spinning, some of those things. Sometimes they may require a small extra fee to get a punch card, I think. Don't quote me on that. Okay.
You're right on that one.
Punch card. But I do know that sometimes they will offer like a free week where you can try out a class, things like that. So if you're interested in those kinds of things, you can always ask. The staff in the Woodpeck are incredibly nice and happy to help. So swing by there and just talk to people about maybe some of the class options if that's something of interest to you as well. But definitely work out.
Yes, indeed. I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this question, so we may be able to refer this question to someone else if neither one of us are sure. But there's been a question that's come through about if you're involved in a team that travels, a sports team that travels, how does that affect your academics, and are professors generally okay with that?
That's a good question that I'm going to encourage us to refer, but I'll make one statement. On the whole, that's going to depend on different faculty, and I just know this from personal experience. And in certain classes, if you really do miss a class, you really are behind. In fact, that's a lot of classes. But I would encourage you to reach out to Andre Moore, especially because if you're a member of a club team, he's the staff member in the Woodruff PE Center who sort of oversees all of the club sports, and he can answer that question for you a lot better than I can.
Great, thank you. We had a question a while ago, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get back to this one, to the student that asked, I'm sorry. But there was a question when we were talking about SIRE and research. I think that there is a misperception that when we say research, we are speaking directly to our pre-med students or our science kids.
Doesn't have to be a test tube.
Right, and so I just want to make sure that you're all aware that research can be in any field. It can be in art history, it can be in linguistics, it can be in anything. So the SIRE program will help you do research in any of those fields. You don't have to be pre-med to do that. So I just wanted to make sure we
about once every couple of months, actually, in the Coca-Cola Commons, which is the big open area in the Duck, the Student Center, the Duck. SIRE actually does some poster presentations where students that have been doing research will be there. You'll know it's the day because there's like a bajillion bulletin boards that are put up on wheels. But walk around. It'll give you some great ideas on the diverse interests of research questions that students right here at Emory are asking and are inquiring about. And then maybe that'll be a way to spark something in you on some research you'd like to do.
Sure. And we've had a question which is not specifically about student organizations, but about part-time jobs and how can students find out about part-time job opportunities on campus?
Absolutely. So I'm not going to know all the terminology, so if you know the system name, I forget. But so some of you actually, as a part of your financial aid package, are going to be offered work-study positions, but then there are also just opportunities across campus to get part-time jobs in the libraries and in the PE Center and things like that. There is a website where typically all these are posted.
Eagle Ops.
Eagle Ops, that's what I was looking for. And you can access that through the Career Center website, correct?
I believe so,
Yeah,
yes.
I think it's the Career Center website. If not, email me and I promise I'll find out for you and I'll forward it to you. But I think it's the Career Center website. You can access Eagle Ops. And I mean, our office has student work, lots of offices have student worker positions. But then there are a number of actually sort of placement-based opportunities to even find jobs. You'll find jobs on Eagle Ops that may be placed in local not-for-profits and things like that have a work-study reciprocation. But you don't have to have work-study to get some of these positions too. So if you just need the extra cash, go there and check it out.
Great. We are winding down. I just want to address a few questions that have come up and that we've been getting a lot of questions about in the orientation office, and those are about two of our pre-orientation trips. One of the questions is about the OEO trip. And a lot of you have been signing up for the OEO trips and haven't found out which trip you're going on yet. And they will announce that once registration closes on July 25th. So if you have not found out which trip you're going on, that's okay, because no one has found out which trip they're going on.
About 2 weeks.
Yeah, so after July 25th, when they close registration, you'll get more information about that. The other question that has been asked that I want to make sure you all are aware of is that the deadline to register for Crossroads is this Friday, July 20th. So if you have not registered, I encourage you to register by Friday if you're interested in doing that.
And I would throw in, just because it's sponsored by the Office of Multicultural Programs and Services, it's open to all students. And I know students of every race, creed, religion, name it, and they've gone to Crossroads and had a fantastic experience and come to orientation with a billion great new friends.
Yeah,
so.
I totally second that emotion. There have been a lot of questions about specific student organizations that have come up that we just cannot get to all of those. And so, like Matt said, one of the best things that you can do is to do a little research on their website, which again is osls.emory.edu. And as he mentioned, you will not be able to log in yet, but don't fear. You can still click around in there and look up some specific organizations and see what's available to you, so that you will have some ideas of what you're thinking about. I also want to reinforce the fact that the Student Activities Fair is happening on August 29th from 4 to 6 p.m. And as Matt said also, we have about 250 student organizations signed up, and they'll all be there eager to meet you. So if you are looking to get involved and meet some friends and explore new interests and new passions, I hope that we will see you at the Student Activities Fair on August 29th. So I think with that, we are going to close out our webinar for the day. Sorry if we were not able to get to all of your questions, but again, osls.emory.edu
or osls@emory.edu if you want to email us a question if you can't figure it out.
Perfect. And when we're done, there's going to be a contacts page, and that we'll leave up for a few minutes. And so if you would like to jot down that information, I'll leave it up for you for a few minutes. If you have other questions about orientation or life as a first-year student or as an Emory student, you can always email the orientation team at ecorientation@learnlink.emory.edu. And one final reminder, our next and final webinar is next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will be talking about registration and OPUS and shopping carts, and hopefully answering all those questions that you all have been emailing us about. Registration is already available for that, so please sign up if you're interested. We have a limited capacity in that webinar, and I suspect that most of you are going to try to sign into that. So if you're interested, sign up as early as possible. And with that, I think we're finished. Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
And
Thanks
for
having
talking
us.
about getting involved. It's great having you. And thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.